All righty. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. We're in store for a wonderful show today. I got lucky enough after reading Mr. Nick Brockhausen's books and coming across this gentleman's names and a few stories, and then buying Jason Hardy's amazing SOG history books that lays out team histories and recognizing the name. We finally got in touch with Mr. Ron Davidson, and he was a SOG veteran. He served at CCN, a variety of teams from RT Rhode Island to RT COBRA to RT Louisiana and Intruder. I'm pretty sure I messed up the rotation, but he was with all of those teams. And as I said, he crossed paths with Mr. Nick, Eldon, and all of those big names that were still around in 71. And after the war, he went on to serve in another unit that we've had a guest that came on and talked to us about, Det-A in Berlin. So we've got a great show in store. I hope everybody's ready to sit here and hear some great stories and get some great history. If y'all got questions, go ahead and get them because we're going to be hitting questions all along today. So I hope I didn't just, let me fix this 1 second. We were unlisted and now there we go. Okay, people didn't hear that, but that's not a problem. All righty, guys. So we're going to get started with Sir Ron here, and we're going to start asking a little bit about his early life and what it was like before the military. Mr. Ron, hope you're having a good day today. We kind of Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We kind of ask everybody a little bit about their origin story, if you will, about where you were born and where you grew up at.
Well, I'm originally from Northeast Texas. I was born up in a little town called Gilmer, Texas, and lived there till I was about 5, and then moved to Longview, Texas, and lived there till I was 12, 14 years old, and then we moved down to Houston, or in the vicinity of Houston, and my background as a kid pretty much the same as everybody else, other than I thought I was real smart and decided I didn't need to go to school, so I quit school and decided to do some really stupid stuff. But my dad kind of straightened me out, and I originally wanted to join the Marine Corps. But my father had been a Marine in the Pacific during World War II, and he was not going for that. At that time, I was 17, and in those days, in order to enlist in the military when you were 17, you had to have your parents' permission. Uh, and my dad would not go for me joining the Marine Corps. He said I could join the Air Force or the Navy. Well, I just never saw myself as a airman, so I decided to join the Navy, and I enlisted in the Navy, and they put me in the Seabees, which was okay, I guess. But man, they work you like a dog in the Seabees, and I'm lazy, man. I don't want to work hard. So I did my first tour in Vietnam with the CB Battalion in 1967. I was at a place called Dong Ha. That's about maybe 10 or 12 kilometers north of Quang Tri. And while I was there, uh, the Marine Corps had so many casualties, they decided to make up for the casualties. So they jerked some of us up out of the CB battalion, and we got to do a little time with the Marines, which I'm glad I did, because then I really knew my dad was right, and I did not want to be a Marine. So I got wounded in May of 67. Not a bad wound. It was really a simple thing. I just got some shrapnel in my leg, my lower right leg, which wasn't a big deal. A Navy corpsman just pulled it out with a pair of hemostats and put a bandage on it and sent me on my way. Well, that would have been fine, except it got infected. And so they sent me down to Da Nang to the Naval Hospital uh, because of the infection, to clear up the infection. But when I got down to the Naval Hospital, they were packed. They had no room for anybody. So they sent me offshore to a hospital ship. Let's see, the name of it was USS
Repos.
Repos. And when I got on that, when I was going out to that ship, I was thinking, oh man, hot damn, I got it made. I'm going to be out there with a bunch of good looking nurses, taking it easy, having fun, eating good and all that stuff. Well, they took me out there and they put me in a ward. They like 60 guys in this ward, beds lined up on both sides of the room. And this big, fat, ugly nurse comes in and she's got a bucket and a mop. She dumps that at my feet and says, "Square your area away. This is your bunk." I said, "What?" So I'm wounded. I'm a goddamn war hero. You can I don't want to do this. Square your damn area away. So here I am mopping the damn floor and shit and crying like a rat. Anyway, I was in there a couple of days and they put some Marine in there with me in the next bed. And he'd been in there about a day and he said, "Hey man, you want to go downtown?" I said, "What?" He said, "Let's go downtown." I said, "How the hell are we going to go downtown?" He says, "Come on, man, get dressed. I'll show you." Well, we still had our clothes. I don't know why they didn't take our uniforms away from us, but we still had them. And so somehow or another, he bogarted us onto this little boat, that little Liberty boat that went back and forth to the dock in Da Nang. So we get on the boat, we go to the dock, we take off and go downtown. You got to understand, Da Nang in these years was strictly off limits for everybody except SOG. So, uh, but I wasn't in SOG, so it was off limits. Well, we're having fun in a bar, and MPs bust in and arrested us, hauled us off, put us in jail. Spent the night in jail. The next day, uh, they drag us out. Well, we're both getting what's called a captain's mast, which is basically a a trial, you know, a more than an Article 15, but not so much as a court martial. Anyway, they before we went to see this captain to get our judgment, we had to go talk to the chaplain because we had been in a house of ill repute. And so I guess the chaplain was not satisfied with my responses. So I'm standing up there in front of the captain, and the captain goes, "Chaplain, what is your recommendation on this young sailor?" The chaplain goes, "Sir, this young man is a moral leper." I said, "Say what? A moral leper? Jesus, man, that's going a little rough." So I got fined 2 months' pay, and then they shipped me back to the hospital ship. As soon as I got there, the doctor said, "Well, if you can go downtown, I think you can go back to your unit." I said, "Yeah, I sure can. Get me out of here. Just let me back to my unit." So they did not send me back to the Marine unit. They sent me back to the CB battalion, which was MCV 8. And so I got back to the CB battalion, but I still hadn't quite been cured of this infection, and it flared up again. It was looking real bad. My legs all swelled up and nasty colors and stuff. So they said they sent me back to the Naval Hospital. And this time I got in the Naval Hospital, but they said, "We really don't know what kind of bacterial infection this is, so we're going to send you back to the States." So they sent me back to the States, and finally got rid of the infection. But I didn't want to go to an onshore unit again, so I begged and got sent back to Vietnam. This is in '68. So they sent me back to Vietnam, and they sent me to Da Nang to the Naval Support Activity. And I'm not going to go through all the bullshit that happened there, because it's a nightmare. But they found out me and my brother were both in Vietnam at the same time, and we were both in I Corps. And I guess my mother had bitched about it. And so they come to me and they says, one of you guys got to leave, and it's you. I said, why me? Why not my brother? They said, because you're a fucking troublemaker. Now you're leaving. There I went. I had to come back to the States after only 8 or 9 months in Vietnam. But when I got back, I was so short on time, I had to either re-enlist or get out. And so I did not want to re-enlist in the Navy because I had not had a lot of fun in the Navy. So so they discharged me, and I came back to Houston, and for about 6 months, wasn't satisfied, didn't fit in well at all. So I said to hell with it. While I had when I was at Conti Inn, I had met some SF guys, and I thought to myself, man, that'd be a great way to be. Those guys got it made. So I went and enlisted in the Army, and I wanted to enlist for Special Forces, but you couldn't do that then. So I wound up, I was smart. I enlisted for Airborne Infantry. Like I said, I'm real smart. Anyway, I enlisted for Airborne Infantry, and I volunteered for Special Forces. I think they came around while we were in jump school, and asked people who wanted to volunteer for Special Forces. Well, out of the about, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of us there, maybe 100 guys. I think maybe 10 or 15 volunteered. And then we had to go take this assessment test. And once we took that assessment test, there was maybe 5 or 6 of us left. So they put us on a bus and sent us to Fort Bragg. And
what time period is this?
That's 1969.
Wow.
And they put us on a bus to Fort Bragg. Then and we went through selection there. Our training group in those days, you had phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 1 at Camp McCall, which is, I think, now the selection course. Phase 2, MOS. Phase 3 was unconventional warfare. So, and they would ask you after I finished phase 1, which was, mini ranger school in those days. They would ask you what you wanted to be, and so you could tell them what you wanted. Didn't guarantee you would get it, but I was talking to this major, I think, and he asked me, he said, what do you want to, what MOS do you want? I said, I want weapons. He said, you sure you don't want anything else? You can be commo or engineer. I said, I'm way too dumb to be anything but weapons. He said, well, if that's the way you feel, you will be weapons. So I went through the weapons course, went through phase 3, and I got assigned to schools, to the weapons committee, as an instructor on the weapons committee. Well, that wasn't my deal either. So I went and I had been dating this whack who worked in the headquarters. And she told me there was a levy for Vietnam, but she didn't know what the levy was about. She just knew it was for Vietnam. And I said, well, put me on it. She says, I can't. It's full. I said, well, take somebody off and put me on it. So her and her girlfriend were dating me and a friend of mine, Lonnie Hines. And I said, so take a couple of guys off, put me and Lonnie on it. So they did. And we wound up going, and we flew into Cameron Bay. And when we got there, they were going to hijack us and put us in the 101st. And I said, well, I ain't going for that bullshit. So me and Hines jumped in a Sickalo and went to the train and just reported in to Fifth Group because we had orders to Fifth Group, and I did not want to get hijacked to the 101st. So we get there, and the sergeant major at that time was Paul Darcy, and they called him Tall Paul Darcy because he's a big old tall guy, good guy. Didn't care much for me, but he was still a good guy. Anyway, uh, they went and they sent us to a major, and the major says, "Okay, we've got 3 units we can send you to." Uh, and one of the other guys, there's like 5 or 6 of us. One of the other guys says, "Well, what are these units?" And this major said, "Well, we can't tell you." I'm thinking they're going to send me someplace, but they can't tell me where. Maybe this ain't right. And he says, "This is a highly classified uh, unit, and you have to sign an NDA before we can tell you about it." I said, "Well, okay, what the hell? I volunteered for everything else. I might as well volunteer for this." So then they tell us, okay, they start explaining a little bit about SOG. They don't, they didn't go into depth on it, but I got the point. This one, I think he was an E8. He says, "If you survive, this will be the best unit you've ever been in." I said, "If I survive?" He goes, "Yeah, if you survive." I said, "Well, I'll give it a shot." So I signed up, and they initially sent me to CCS, and
Okay.
I went down to CCS down in Bamituit, and I was assigned to First Company, First Platoon, First Company, and the CO was a guy named Don Carr, a real good guy. I think his nickname was Butch, but he was a super good guy, good captain, good officer, and so I was satisfied with what I had there. Uh, and then Captain Carr decided he wanted to go fly Covey at NKP, which he did. And unfortunately, he got killed, and really broke my heart. He's a great guy. Anyway, he uh, after he left, uh, they were doing the Vietnamization thing. Nobody was running Recon, and even the companies, the Hatchet Force companies, weren't really doing anything. Uh, it seemed to me the Vietnamese just didn't want to do anything, and they weren't going to let the Americans do anything. So I went to the XO and I said, "Listen, I'd like to go to CCN." He said, "No, you're not." I said, "Why not?" He says, "This is your third tour in Vietnam. I don't have anybody else with experience. You're staying here." I said, "You know, for what? There's nothing to do." And he goes, "Well, you ain't going." I said, "Well, can I talk to the colonel?" He goes, "Yeah, you can talk to him, but it ain't gonna do you no good." So I go into the colonel's office and I ask the colonel. I said, "Look, this is really not for me. This is boring. There's nothing going on." He says, "I understand." I said, "But look, I'd like to go to CCN." He says, "You sure? Are you crazy?" I said, "Well, maybe. I'd like to go to CCN." He said, "Catch a flight down to Saigon, go to Up 35, see Captain Ed Lassane." I said, "Okay." I jumped on a flight, went down to Saigon, went into Up 35 there, and went into Lassane's office. And he says, "What do you want?" I said, "I want orders to go to CCN." He says, "Are you crazy?" I said, "I've been asked that before." I said, "Well, maybe, but I still want to go to CCN." He says, "Okay, come back in the morning and I'll have your orders." Good deal. So I went back to House 10, screwed around. Didn't go downtown that night. I just stayed in Half and drank in the bar there. And the next morning I went in and had they had my orders ready for me. So I grabbed them orders, jumped on another flight. I think I caught a flight the same day, as a matter of fact, that was going to Bamituit and then Khartoum, then Da Nang. So I flew up to Bamituit, packed all my gear up, caught the next shuttle run that was going up to Da Nang, and I remember the aircraft landed at Khartoum.
Oh,
Because this shuttle went from Saigon to Bamituit to CCS and then to Da Nang. And it was a regular shuttle. I don't know how often it ran, maybe twice a week, something like that. But anyway, I jumped on this shuttle headed for Da Nang, but it landed in Khartoum. So everybody gets off the airplane and we're letting people off, loading people on. We're all standing around on a ramp. And I'm talking to another guy named Davidson, and his name is Donald Davidson. And we're joking about it because I'm Ronald Davidson and he's Donald Davidson. All of a sudden, me and the other Davidson, we hear it. We hear that boop off in the distance. It's a mortar coming out of a tube. We didn't say shit. We started running, and we started running and jumped in the ditch. Everybody looking at us like we're crazy until the mortar round landed. Everybody's piling in the ditch. But me and the other Davidson had heard that noise numerous times before, so we knew what it was. And so we finally get on the plane. We go up to Da Nang, and there's 4 of us, I think. And I can't remember who all was with me, but a black Deuce and a half drives up. They load us on the Deuce and a half, and they take us to Camp Villarosa. And we go sign in at S1, and they sent me and 2 other guys to Recon company, and I think they kept 2 guys for the EF companies. But they sent me down there, and I walked into the orderly room, and there's this little short, blonde, squat guy sitting there with captain's bars on. His name, he looked like a little bulldog, and Brockhausen used to call him the world's tallest midget. And that was Captain, oh God,
Larry Manus.
Larry Manus. That was Larry Manus. And anyway, Manus says, "Have you ever run Recon before?" I said, "Not like this, for damn sure." And he goes, "Okay, go over there and see." I can't remember who it was I saw, kind of a company clerk. They called him Frenchie. I can't remember his last name. Anyway, I went over there and I got assigned to a team. I got assigned to RT Rhode Island.
Oh. Ooh, we've lost your audio, sir. We've lost your audio. Did you unplug something? Sounds like you've muted your mic. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
You're back. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I did. I leaned on it. All right. Anyway, they sent me over to RT Rhode Island, and the 1-0 on that was a captain named Bill Sterling. Nice guy, good guy, knew what he was doing. Fortunately for me, because I didn't know shit. And I wasn't on the team very long. I mean, it was because when I first got to CCN, Operation Lamsan was going on, and we weren't running any missions because we had no air support. So after Lamsan ended, I'm thinking May about May of 71. Uh, we got a mission immediately after that, and it was up in the tri-border area. I think a Hotel 10, Hotel 11, one of those. I got used to those and hated them both. Uh, and me and Sterling went on this mission. Now the team that we had was outstanding. They were really, really good. The 01 was to us an old man, probably in his late 40s, early 50s, but he had been fighting for a very long time. He was fighting against the Japanese during World War II. So he knew his shit, you know. Okay, looks like we're back.
Yeah, you're cutting in and out. There you go. You're coming back now. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was gonna ask a little bit about first getting onto the compound and everything. What was that like for you? You've already been to Vietnam on a tour, and you've seen a little bit of combat. You've been wounded. You'd say not really, but what's it like getting on the compound after all your special forces training and being in SOG finally?
Well, it was kind of weird because all the gate guards were mountain yards. We didn't there was one American from security company was in charge of all the guards, and but all the actual guards were all mountain yards, and they only knew one thing: you could come in if you were authorized, you couldn't if you wasn't. They didn't care. They wouldn't even let General Westmoreland on the place until he got escorted. Uh, so. Uh, so when we got to the gate, of course, all the guards knew the NCOs that was with us, so they didn't give us any problem. And about the first building you came to on your right was the S1. So we would. That's the first place you went. You went to the S1, handed over your orders and your records and stuff, and then they sent you to whatever company you were going to. And uh, when uh, when I got down to uh, Recon company, I was kind of staggering around lost. I didn't know shit. I stopped and asked a guy who turned out to be Jimmy Johnson where the hell I was supposed to go. Jimmy didn't say shit to me. Didn't never said a word. Just pointed at, at, uh, at yeah. So uh, then I went in there and saw Manus and and after I got on the team, of course, they took us up to uh, the talk, and they briefed us on on what SOG's mission was and what we were going to be doing and all that operational areas and all that stuff, which was a real eye opener because I did not know anything about Cambodia, Laos, North Vietnam, none of that bullshit. So that was a real eye opener. And of course, uh, the commander at that time was Colonel Donnie Belfi. And Colonel Belfi and the operations officer, who I can't remember who that was, briefed us on the operational areas and stuff. And I thought to myself, well, this don't look too bad. But then I got to thinking about it, and I said, wait a minute, there's only going to be 4, 6, or 8 of us, and there's a whole bunch of them assholes over there. Over there, this could get kind of rough. So uh, I decided to go along with it. I wasn't going to quit at that point. So I went. Then I got introduced to Bill Sterling, and he introduced me to the team. And like I said, outstanding team. I love these guys, and they saved my ass a couple of times. Anyway, uh, right after Lumsan was over, we had a, a mission pretty quick, within a couple of weeks, and and I'm thinking May of uh, of 71. So me and Bill go on this mission, and we go in at last light, which had I known what I knew later, I wouldn't have wanted to do that. But we went in, we moved a little while, a few, maybe 3 or 4 hours, and then we set up in RON. And I can remember it was really early in the morning. It's just starting to get daylight, and I'm leaning up against my rucksack, kind of nodding off. And my interpreter comes over and taps me on the shoulder, and he says, "There's a tiger coming up the hill." I said, "What? A tiger?" And I asked him, "A tiger? Are you sure?" And he shakes his head. I think we had a little miscommunication there. Uh, I said, "This is bullshit. There ain't no self-respecting tiger is going to be here," because where we at, the area we were at, been defoliated probably 100 times, and all we had was brush that was 10, 15 feet tall, real thick. It was hot as hell, and we had all these damn sweat bees buzzing around us all the time, driving you crazy. But I'm thinking, the hell is he talking about, a tiger? There's no tigers here. And then I start hearing a noise in the brush. I said, "Well, that ain't no tiger. I don't know any two-feeted tigers." So, so I'm awake now. I'm wide awake, but I'm still leaning against my rucksack, and I got my rifle across my lap. And all of a sudden, just like he appeared out of nowhere, a NVA appeared in front of me, uh, and he did not see me at first. He saw my point man Bluey, and uh, and then he looked over and saw me, and he got this real shocked look on his face. But at that point, it was too late. I shot him in the face, and he went down. But because I'm kind of a midget, my thumb ain't very long. And when I flipped my rifle over to what I thought was full auto, it didn't go to full auto. It went halfway between semi and full auto, and it was still on semi. Well, I only fired one round, and I thought, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought my rifle's jammed. So I'm scooting backwards on my butt using my heels, and there's two guys standing behind him, and they're blazing away. Goddamn limbs are falling down, dirt's popping up. And that's when Bluey saved me. He shot the next guy in line, and I'm assuming killed him because didn't do nothing else. But the third guy jumped down behind a log, and I saw him go down behind this log, and he was taking his rifle, putting it up above the log without himself showing himself, and just kind of spraying. I said, "Well, shit, he's going to hit somebody sooner or later." And I had trying to figure out what to do with him. And then I realized there was a little gap, like a 4 to 6 inch gap between the ground and the bottom of that log. So I said, hell, I took one of those mini grenades and I sidearmed that sucker under that log and got him. But by this time, Bill's going, "What's going on? What's going on?" I said, "Hey, you might want to get the aircraft back." So he's on the radio, getting the aircraft back, and I can hear this guy yelling. Uh, so I get my interpreter over there, and I said, "What the hell is he saying?" And the interpreter said, "He's telling them to get on the line and push us out of our position." I said, "Oh no, we ain't doing that. That's a no go right there." So about that time, now Bill for some reason is standing straight up, looking over me, and one of them fired an RPG, but I don't know if it was because he was firing at a pretty steep angle uphill, but he was getting the range wrong, and he fired over us, way over us. And when he did that, I turned around and said, "Bill, get down, man." So Bill got down, and and I'm trying to find this guy with a damn RPG. And you'd think you'd be able to see him, but the brush was just really, really thick. But then he fired another round, and it went over us too. He misjudged the range again, but this time I saw where he's at. I saw all the brush moving and the smoke and the dirt flying up and stuff. And I said, "Okay, now I got you." So I had a sawed-off M79 that I had been practicing with quite a bit. So now you got to understand, I'm an idiot. I still think my rifle's jammed and ain't bothered to check it yet. So I get my sawed-off M79. I fire a round at him. Well, I did the same thing he did. I overestimated, and it went over him. So I fired another round, and I got close to him. But by then he fired another round. Now he has adjusted his range, and he's getting closer to us. So I said, I got to get him. So my third round, I got him, and that was the end of him. And about that time, the COBRAs came back. They started lighting the area up, and we got out of there without anybody getting killed. Nobody got wounded. Nothing. It was an absolute miracle. We didn't have anybody wounded or nothing, because I'm thinking today that what we ran into was one of those anti-recon teams.
Hunter killer.
And they were pretty good. I got to give them credit. They were pretty damn good. And the reason I'm thinking this is because the first guy I shot, I got a real good look at him. And he had on these gray-green fatigues with a pith helmet, and everything looked new. It didn't look like what you normally see an NBA soldier wearing, is all roughed up and beat up and shit. His stuff looked really new. So either these guys were just coming down from the DMZ, or they were a anti-recon team. But the way they were acting, the way this whoever was trying to get them online was acting, because he knew what he had to do. He had to push us out of our position, because that was the only way they was going to get us, unless because when the air support showed up, they're screwed, and they know that. So they know that they got to push you out of your position, get you running, get you disorganized. Then they can run you down and kill you. So he was trying real hard to get his people to do that. But his problem was we were on a steep incline, and the brush was super, super heavy. So I'm thinking he was having trouble getting his people lined up. And for whatever reason, it did not take the air support very long at all to get there. They must have been in the air when we called. So anyway, we got out of that one scot-free, you know. But that was my first combat in CCN.
That is unbelievable for a first mission. And one of the viewers and I actually went into detail us speaking about this because I was so curious. And guys, great questions. We're going to be hitting these because these are great questions. But Jason, longtime viewer of the show, he said, "This seems like a great situation to have the RPD on the team. Did you or any members ever carry an RPD?"
I did, yes. On occasion. You got to understand, toward the end, after about September of 71, we knew we weren't going to get any recon done because they were shooting us out as soon as we got in. So I decided, this is stupid. I'm not taking 4 or 6 guys in to get killed. Uh, Everybody knew, everyone zero knew that there was a rat somewhere was ratting us out. And it turned out later there was a mole in Op 35 in Saigon. But we knew that because they were waiting on us every damn time. And the problem was, a lot of times they'd wait for you to get on the ground, start moving, and then they'd hit you after your air support was gone. But uh, probably around September, I stopped uh, taking 4 men, 6 men. I started taking the whole damn team, 8, 10, 12 yards plus the 2 Americans, because I knew we was just going to get in a fight. And
So you're
that
carrying a
photograph there,
heavy team.
that's our.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
was
yes,
carrying a
sir.
heavy team by then.
Yeah, that's we hear so much about Joe Walker at CCC, and we always see
Yeah,
photos like this of there being a lot of yards, and guys would question, look at all these yards, and we only hear about them taking 3, 4 out, and now you're saying no, all these boys started going out with us.
yeah. It's when I first started, we would take. I think on that first mission, I told you, I think we had 4 mountain yards on that one. There was me, Bill Sterling, and 4 mountain yards, and uh, we would. But by September, it just everybody knew you're not staying in. You're never going to get to stay in. Just impossible. So, because they knew we were coming in, they knew where we were coming in. So, as far as weapons, I'd take every goddamn thing we could carry. A lot of times I'd carry an RPD uh, uh, or an RPG rather, and I carried a sawed-off RPD because I love that thing. Uh, and we
How many
some
guys like to know about specifically when you guys were carrying the RPDs? How much ammunition are you carrying since you're talking about going in and fighting?
Well, I would carry if I was carrying an RPD, okay, because I was also carrying a Car 15. I
Oh,
wouldn't leave it nothing
also,
behind, and
okay.
an M79, a sawed-off M79, because I
Holy.
was so heavy I could barely walk. Anyway, we would carry. I'd carry probably 400 rounds for the RPD, and then I'd have some more ammo with some other guys. With some of the mountain yards, be carrying 100 rounds each. So I would carry probably we'd have 600-700 rounds for the RPD, and a lot of times the last mission I ever ran was with RT Habu, was Brockhausen and McLaughlin, and I was carrying an M60 mortar, and Brockhausen was carrying an M60 mortar, so we went
Oh,
heavy.
holy crap! And we again we've heard from guests from CCC using that, and that being able to break that baby out real quick and ram an HE down the NVA's throat. I gotta imagine that was a hell of a weapon for y'all to start utilizing.
Yeah, it surprised them because you know now these Recon teams were, as I understand it, and from my personal experience, were very, very good. They were tough, they were brave, and they were, I don't want to say they were tactically real good because their tactics, at least to me, seemed a little rigid. And they
Massively.
couldn't they couldn't seem to uh, change stuff on the fly like we did. But they were good. They were really, really good. And man, they had some guts. I got to tell you, because I've seen them just stack up bodies, man, and just keep coming and never stop. I wouldn't have done that. Not many Americans would do stuff like that.
No.
Anyway,
What with
uh,
and we're gonna kind of be all over the place here a little bit, but one question is already answered considering this hell of a way for you to earn your CIB and get your first snap in first mission underway. do you remember the air assets, the coveys that were working? Was it the 20th TAS that was flying around?
I believe it was.
Out of Play
I
Coup or
believe it,
NKP maybe, or Da Nang?
most of the ones we had were out of NKP,
Oh, wow.
or out of Da Nang. So, uh, I remember the Covey riders, but I was never a Covey rider. So I don't know any of the pilots except for one guy. And I think they called him Catfish. He was an Air
Mm-hmm.
Force pilot, really good, knew his stuff. Uh, but the Covey riders we had were exceptional too. I can think of Dave Cheney, Dave Ward, Les
Al
Chapman.
Mosiello.
Yeah, yeah. Good guys. Now you got to understand, these are all recon guys who had run on the ground and then went to be a cubby rider. You didn't get to go be a cubby rider until you've been on the ground, which was, in my opinion, the only way to do it. So,
uh,
but
uh,
where was I? Oh, I was talking about the weapons we carried. Yeah, it got to the point where on my body, my personal body, if I wasn't carrying a machine gun and I was just carrying my Carp 15, I'd have 1,000 rounds. I'd have 30 grenades, 2 claymores, 2 blocks of C4, and a couple of rounds for the mortar, and 200 or so rounds for the machine gun that we were carrying. So that's heavy. And more than once, I used it all up.
Jeez. When you did carry, because we spoke to a CCC guy that was with Joe Walker at California, and the interesting thing, when they carried the mortar, did y'all have guys, everyone, including the indige, would y'all have pre-placed mortars in backpacks to where when y'all got in action, you could just reach in backpacks and just let them fly?
Yeah, we do. Everybody had their, at least on my teams, the teams I was on, everybody had their rucksack set up the same. So if you had to get something out of a guy's rucksack, you knew where to look.
Mm.
Now, the indige, not so hard because they had the little indige rucksacks. The Americans, sometimes I carried an indige rucksack as well because it's smaller, easier to get around with. But we tried to set our rucksacks up the same for everybody. Now there would be some difference because not everybody carries exactly the same stuff. I might have one guy carrying machine gun ammo and he's not carrying a mortar round or something like that. But as much as we could, well, we tried to set everything up the same because if I wanted to grab something out of a guy's rucksack, I knew where to look without having to search.
Guys are also curious, and we'll be getting to some more of the questions, guys. What about we see a lot of the different camouflage or the uniform camouflage patterns that guys would use, spray painting, sewing on pockets, or the fabled 1-0 vest. What did you wear uniform wise for operations?
For the operations, I had a specific uniform that I wore on every operation. It was a regular, you can see me there, right there. I got the boonie hat, that's my 1-0 vest, and just regular green fatigues with some black spray paint on it. And I think that's the only picture that's there ever was of me getting ready to go to the field.
Only one I've seen.
In that photograph, me and McLaughlin, who's standing right next to me with a watch cap on, is we're getting ready to launch a mission, and that was me, him, and Brockhausen. And I don't know why Brockhausen's not in that picture, but
he's got a broke arm, if I remember correctly.
No, he went on that damn mission, so I don't think his arm was broke. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, I had my 1-0 vest set up the way I wanted it. What the 1-0 vest was a Air Force pilot survival vest, and I think Jason Hardy's got mine. and I had a AK vest sewed to the front of it. Yeah, that's it. You can see I got an AK vest sewed to the front of it so I can put 6 magazines in it. That saved my ass one time. Not that particular vest, but an AK vest saved my ass, boy. I got shot dead center of the chest, but it didn't penetrate because I had 2 double stack magazines uh, in the pocket there, and it hit those magazines and just flattened those magazines. And man, I mean to tell you, it hurt like hell.
Kind of like
And
Mr. Ken
the
has
funny
right
thing,
here.
yeah, and later on, I was talking to. I was crying because my chest hurt so bad, and I was talking to Eldon Bargewell, and he says, "Yeah, you're lucky. The same thing happened to me. I got shot in the chest wearing one of those, and it saved my ass." And he told me the story. I don't remember it. I think he was chasing a guy or something. Anyway, uh, he got shot in the chest. So uh, after that, I got the 1-0 vest, and I had that AK vest sewed on the front for that specific reason, in case I got shot again.
That I mean that when I first heard Mr. Eldon's story, and then started seeing you, Mr. John Waters, and other guys, and Mr. Nick with the AK vest, I was like, that's strange. All of a sudden, I never used to in Jason's books seeing, and then there's a certain period where it seems like all of y'all are wearing them. I'm assuming people heard the story and were like, hey, that's not a bad idea to actually have a little bit extra more protection up there.
Yeah, I don't know if the other guys did that for that reason, but I certainly had it sewed on my 1-0 vest for that particular reason.
Mm.
Yeah, you got to excuse my moving around here. I just had a full knee replacement
Oh, yeah.
the other day, and I'm having to shift my position a little bit every once in a while.
If you get uncomfortable and we need to shut it down for the day, let me know. I don't want to keep you in pain. I
Oh no,
thank you enough for even doing it under this
that
circumstances.
that's okay. Just excuse my
Oh,
wiggling around.
you do whatever you got to do to be comfortable, sir. This we'll get back into kind of the timeline, but I thought some of the questions would be interesting since folks are putting some good ones. David was curious, could you ask Ronnie about his area of operations at CCN, and what were the hot areas that he recalls, and what was the largest force he encountered on an operation?
Oh, let's see. Our area of operations initially was uh, along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, but I can't remember when they stopped Nickel Steel, which Nickel Steel was the operations that took place in Laos. But they stopped that at some point in '71, I believe. But we were still running missions right along the border of and up in the tri border area and just short of the DMZ.
Right.
So, and those were some pretty hot areas, uh, uh, and they could get kind of hairy. And because I knew that we weren't going to get stay in for any lengthy period of time, that's when I started carrying all my people with me and as much junk as I could carry. And people used to laugh at me because when we go to load up, there'd be a whole bunch of mountain yards, and be 50,000 guns and all stuff like that. But man, that's just the way it was. It got to the point where I was so paranoid that when we go to the launch site, I'd do my briefing, and I'd even do my briefing with the pilots. But just before we would launch, I'd call the pilots aside and change the LZs and not tell anybody. Other than if I was at Quang Tri, I'd tell Pappy Boudreaux because I trusted him 100%. So I probably could have got my ass in a crack about that, but nobody ever said nothing. Maybe they knew what I was doing and didn't care, or they knew what I was doing and didn't blame me, or they just didn't know what I was doing. But the last few missions were like that. I didn't. I I didn't want them to know exactly where I was coming in because I knew somebody was ratting us out. And anyway, let's see, what was his other question? Oh, the largest force. That's really hard to judge uh, because in our operational area, it's real thick jungle and or that brush like I was talking about before, and you really can't see very far at all. You have to judge by the fire you're taking, and I always try to put myself into a position where they couldn't bring any more fire on me than I could just manage. So I would say the biggest I ever dealt with, maybe two companies, but I could be wrong. Easy. Maybe it was a battalion. I don't know. But like I said, I always picked a location where they couldn't bring any more on me than that I wanted them to. So, well, I didn't want them to bring any of them on me, but I was careful about my locations.
This is actually tying in because we had actually heard as early back as Lynn Black talking about doing the same thing about not writing down one LZ and telling the launch site a different thing. And some CCC guys did the same. And this question kind of falls along on that as well. David was curious, could you ask him how locations for operations were picked and determined? Were these known areas of NVA buildup where they were located or headquarters? And you just said about the suspected spies within SOG giving up drop zones.
Well, I don't know how that was picked. That was done in Saigon at Op 35, and they didn't tell us anything we didn't need to know. So, as a matter of fact, they didn't tell us some of the stuff we needed to know. So, I don't know how they chose the operational areas for the missions. I know there was a couple of occasions I had some input. There was one time we had it was an overwatch. We were on top of an old fire support base, and if I remember right, it was near the old Chem Duck Special Forces camp. And after we did that the first time, I told them maybe we should do this again because it looks like they're having to we're interfering with the way they're infiltrating. They're having to go around us, and if we don't do nothing else, we're interfering with that. So they put us in again, and then they shot us up. So and got us out of there.
Gosh, yeah. From hearing Mr. Nick and all of them talk, like you said earlier, I mean, y'all would be lucky. I mean, it'd be considered a coup being on the ground for over a day or two. I mean, y'all are usually running and gunning just to get back out.
Normally, that's the way it was. You, like I say, a lot of times they'd let you come in and they'd give you a little bit of time, half a day maybe, and then they'd bounce you. The trick to that is to move in a direction that they can't predetermine, and you can look at the terrain and decide, what they're going to think, because they think Americans are lazy, and they're probably true, but they think Americans are lazy, and they think we're going to take the easiest route. So you can be guaranteed that easy route, they're going to be waiting on you. So you don't take that route ever.
With your with being on Rhode Island and running that mission, how many more missions did you run with Rhode Island until you moved on to your next recon team?
I only ran one more with Rhode Island. They had changed the 1-0, and he and I had a personality conflict. So, and I'm pretty sure he went to Larry or Billy Wall and asked them to get me off the team. which was okay because I wanted off the team.
Mm.
And so I went from there to RT Louisiana. You got to understand in at CCN and all of SOG, the 1-0 could call anything. He had the choice. He was the boss. If he didn't want somebody on his team, all he had to do was say so, and he could say that for any reason or no reason. So, uh, and that was the only way it could be. You could not run that operation any other way. So I went to RT Louisiana, where Ray Frovart was a 1-0, good 1-0. Ray's a really, really good guy.
Kason veteran as well. He definitely was around a while.
Yeah. I get to see him at SOAR every once in a while. Uh, he's he's a good guy, man. I'll tell you, and a hard worker.
I've heard from everybody that knew him, ran recon with him, or what have you, that he's just an outstanding guy and just a hell of a soldier. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Did
Everybody,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
almost every single guy in CCN Recon Company was outstanding. Uh, if they weren't, they didn't stay,
Nah,
either because they didn't want to be there, or Larry Manus and Billy Waugh didn't want you there. And if Billy Waugh or Larry Manus didn't want you there, you didn't stay.
Wow. 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 Did you speaking of Mr. Ray in Louisiana, was and I believe one of the questions that I left off on that longer part was your worst or scariest mission. Wasn't your worst mission that you would consider while you were on Louisiana with that typhoon, with that weather that you got in?
That's the most miserable one, I can tell you that. It wasn't the scariest, but definitely the most miserable. The scariest one was on RT COBRA with my 1-1 was a guy named Guy Waggy. And Guy was real good. That guy had ice water in his veins. Never got excited, never got upset, and he was just cool all the time. Did everything he had to do without ever worrying. He Guy Waggy and I, we ran a mission. I think it was near the Ashow. I can't remember now because we didn't even stay in a full day, about a half a day. And they got on us right away. And they were on us so fast and so hard that we couldn't stop running. If we'd have stopped running, they'd have got us. So I remember we came up to a little shallow stream with a fairly steep bank on the other side. So I told Guy to take the rest of the team up that embankment and do an overwatch for me and the 2 mountain yards that were staying down to cover them going up. So Guy and those guys and the rest of the team, I think him and 7 mountain yards, went up this embankment. They were on the top of it. And me and the 2 mountain yards were down on the other side of the stream from the embankment behind a big ass tree. And I didn't hear them moving because I had been hearing the NBA moving through the brush and stuff, but I didn't hear them. So I said, "Shit, we got to break." So I told the 2 mountain yards, "Get up there." So they took off and went back up the embankment. So I figured I'd wait another minute or two and see what was happening. And I was just about to go up the bank myself. Boy, they started blazing away at me. Rounds going everywhere. Now I'm hiding behind this damn tree and I can't move. So I'm going, what the hell am I going to do, man? As soon as I get out behind this tree, they'll shoot me full of holes. And well, Waggy and the guys that are up on the embankment, they're covering me, but not to the point where I can get up the embankment. And I know they're moving closer. I can tell by the sound of the rifles firing. They're getting a little closer, edging closer. So I said, shit, I got to get these guys off my ass. So I took a claymore out of my rucksack and I reached around the side of that big ass tree and set that claymore in the ground. Now you got to understand, this is a big tree. It's about 3 feet around, but it's still 3 feet ain't very far from a claymore. So I said, in my addled brain, I decided if I set this off, it'll get them off my ass long enough for me to get up the bank. But what I didn't take into account there was that's 2.5 pounds of C4. Anyway, I set that damn thing off, and it blew me up the embankment. Boy, I was seeing stars and shit. The only thing that saved my life was a couple of mountaineers come running down, grabbed me, and drugged me back up the embankment. So we had a little firefight because we had a good defensive position there, but I knew it couldn't last because I knew they would flank us. There was a lot of them. There weren't so few that they couldn't flank us, and I could tell they were starting to. They were going to flank us on my left-hand side, which was pretty thick, and they could get in real close. So I said, man, we got to get the hell out of here. Now, I can't hear shit. I'm deaf as a post at this point. So I got to give Waggy the radio, and we take off. And it just so happened where we at, there was a bald spot on the top of this hill that we had run up, and it had a bomb crater on it. So I said, oh, hot damn. So we jumped in this bomb crater, and Waggy's calling the air assets, and they come in, and I'd already laid on A1Es and COBRAs, and I remember I laid on a whole bunch of crap, especially A1Es. I loved them, and we got all our air assets in there and got them off of us, and I think at that time we were using the 20th SOS, the Green Hornets. Yeah, and they come in and got us, and I remember thinking, because I hadn't seen them before, I thought we were going to 101st. These real pretty green Hueys come in, twin engine Hueys come in, and I'm thinking we're going to need 3 to pull everybody out. Well, I start getting my people on the aircraft, and the crew chief keeps waving for me to put more people on. I'm going, what the hell? So I load that one up. The next one comes in. He wants everybody on. I couldn't believe it. So we all got out with 2 aircraft, and that was my introduction to the 20th SOS. Now, I thought they were great.
That's always interesting because we've had mainly, except for at the very, very beginning, they were kind of helping in Khartoum with the Omega project, but you always hear of them working exclusively for CCS until, kind of like you alluded, stuff started calming down and Americans weren't crossing the border, and they end up going up north and helping. As a matter of fact, they work over the area and help out Mr. Eldon Bargewell in one of his big missions.
Yeah, they were surprised when they got up there because they were used to CCS, and the operational area down at CCS. It's pretty flat. You can see for long distances. Where in CCN, everything is real close. So I remember talking to one of the pilots. And he said, "God damn, boy, we got up here." First day, my aircraft got shot full of holes. I ain't never seen no shooting like that. But they were good. I got to give them credit. I will give this to all the air assets we used. They were outstanding. Every one of them. The 101st had the Black Widows, Comancheros. They were fantastic. The 20th SLS, fantastic. They did stuff. I'll I'll give you an example. RT Cobra, me and Bill Krempa. Uh, this is for before Bill left. Uh, uh, we had a mission, and Bill did the VR, and he picked a hill. Why he did this, I don't know. He picked a hill that was in the middle of a sea of elephant grass. But this hill had a bald spot on top, had a finger running down that was covered in trees, but everything else was elephant grass. And man, you want to stay out of elephant grass if you can. That stuff is rough. Uh, anyway, uh, we went in on the top, and everybody's got everybody in, no problem. But then we start looking around, and there's all these half-finished fighting positions and bunkers. I'm going, oh man, this do not look good to me. So I said, Bill, what do you think, bud? He goes, this does not look good. I said, now you want to tell me where you think these guys are? He goes, they're down there in those trees. I said, you betcha. So I said, why don't you? He's got the radio. I said, why don't you call the gunships back, and have them make them run on those trees? Because I'm thinking this is like October, maybe October, November. It's toward the end when things were hard, and so Bill calls the gunships back, and him and two mountain yards are down in this hole, a fighting position, half dug on the downslope of this hill, facing these trees. And I'm watching these gunships, and as soon as one of them rolled over, and he hadn't fired yet, but he's going to roll over and hit them with rockets. As soon as he rolled over, an RPG come in and hit the tree above Bill in the two mountain yards, and just sprayed them with shrapnel. Well, now Bill's got a shrapnel in his face, blood running all down in his face, so he can't see anything. One of the mountain yards lost an eye, and the other one's hitting an artery in the neck, blood squirting out all over the place. So I jumped down there, and I grabbed Bill's hand, and I put it against this guy's neck, and I said, hold your hand there or he's going to bleed to death. I said, he's got to go first. And uh, anyway, I get Bill and the two mountain yards back up to the top of the hill, and they're not showing themselves yet, but they're putting a lot of fire on us, RPGs and RPDs and AKs, and so because of the arms they had, I'm thinking it was like a company, and I know we can't last long on top of this hill. So fortunately, the air assets were not very far away, and they came right back. And I'm going to give one of the Woodham brothers, I don't know which one it was, because I can never tell the difference between them. You know, they're twins. And both of them fantastic medics and now doctors. Anyway, one of the Woodham brothers was chase medic. So I handed the mountain yard that was hitting the neck off to him, and I'll be damned if he didn't save him. I don't know how he did it, but he saved him. Now the guy was paralyzed. He was hit on the right side, so he's paralyzed on the left side for several months. But I kept him on the team so he could keep getting paid and keep his family fed. So, and the guy with the eye wasn't too bad. Just he's going to be looking a little funny. So now Bill's still got blood running in his face, can't see shit. So I get the first slick in, and I get Bill and those two wounded mountain yards in the aircraft. Okay, and he goes out, and I'm waiting for the next one to come in. But by this time, I got some shrapnel in my forearms and hands, both forearms and hands. And I had another mountain yard. Uh, uh, he got shrapnel and he got shot. If I remember right, he was shot in the leg. But anyway, I got I got all of them on, and I'm thinking there's me and two mountain yards left to get on aircraft and go out. So the third aircraft's coming in, and I'm looking around, and I don't see one of my mountain yards. He's missing. I go shit. So I'm having a fit there, and the aircraft comes in. I get the one mountain yard I got on the aircraft, and I turn around and I start looking for my missing mountain yard. I'm looking all over for him, and the aircraft takes off. And I thought, oh shit! Now I'm left with what I think is one mountain yard, but I don't have him because he went around to the other side of the hill and got on the aircraft, and I didn't see him. So I'm down there by myself, and I ain't happy. So I'm on the radio to uh, Dave Cheney was a cubby, and I'm crying like a rat to Dave, help me, help me, help me, and so I'm uh, I'm about running out of ammunition, man. I've run out of ammo with my Car 15, and I had an M60, but I'd set it on the floorboard of the aircraft, and they left with it. Uh, but now all I got is grenades, and I'm throwing grenades and shit, trying to keep them off of me. And another slick comes in, the same one that I had just the last slick that I had put. He comes back for me, uh, and he comes in and he's hovering. He can't sit down. He's hovering next to one of these half-finished bunkers. So now I got my rucksack, and I got Bill's rucksack that I don't want to abandon because it's got a KY-38 in it. Now I don't know who knows what a KY-38 is. It's a encryption communications gear. Uh, so I've got his rucksack, my rucksack, and I'm climbing on top of this bunker, and my left leg collapsed to the top, and I'm stuck down in this damn bunker and can't get up. And I'm flopping around down there, and I'm looking up at the aircraft, and I can see rounds going through. You still got me there?
We got you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You
okay.
just
I
came
see
back.
rounds going through the open was the door, and I can see the windshield uh, fracture. And I go, shit, they're going to leave me. And I don't blame them. I'd be getting out of there too. But a damn crew chief or gunner jumped off that aircraft, ran over there, drugged me out of that hole, and threw me on the aircraft. I couldn't believe that. Well, that took guts. I'm telling you. And that those are the guys we had for air support. That pilot sat there and held that aircraft steady as hell, bullets flying everywhere, and that crew chief jumped off the aircraft. He could have got left down there with me and drugged me on it. Those were the guys we had. They were the best.
Did you ever? I'm sure you didn't, because how y'all worked in and out. Did you ever get to find out who that guy was?
No, I didn't, but I wrote a letter to the 101st. I had the aircraft number because the launch site had it, and I wrote a letter to the 101st recommending that entire crew for Silver Stars, and I hope they got it.
Oh, if it was the 101st, I'm wondering if it was the Lancers or the Comancheros or.
It would have been probably the Black Widows or Comancheros.
Awesome. We've had a Comanchero gentleman on, and I'll be asking around about that because God, he said that is the highlight of his life is getting to work with you gentlemen. He said there's no braver men in this world than SOG men from Vietnam.
Oh, now I don't know. I don't see myself as a hero now. I don't want to go that far. I'm just
Well,
I'm just I just did a job.
you definitely walked amongst them. If you won't call you, I'll call you a hero. You don't have to
Well,
accept, but I'll call you.
there's some guys I would call a hero. Eldon Barswell, guys like that. Dick Meadows, those guys are heroes. Bob Howard.
Speaking of Mr. Dick Meadows, the gentleman you mentioned, Big Paul Darcy, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, on one of his SOG tours, he was actually flying Covey for Dick Meadows when Dick Meadows earned his DSC, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably, I wouldn't doubt it. Uh, Meadows earned a lot of medals, and let me rephrase that. He got a lot of medals, and he earned them all. Uh, that was one of the most impressive guys I ever met. Him and Bob Howard.
That was one of our questions, and I think Mr. Dick was Meadows was around. I don't know if he was still in Vietnam in '71. I guess by then he was back, but I know
Well, I don't
69,
think so.
70 he was there. But so some of the viewers are curious, and one name that was mentioned because you already talked about him. But could you tell us any Billy Wall or Mr. Larry Manus stories that stick out in your mind?
Sure, I can rat them out. First time I ever met Billy Waugh, I almost shot him. He was such an obnoxious prick. The first time I met him was in a safe house at Da Nang, and I don't know if he had maybe too much to drink, but he was one obnoxious prick that night. I was mad, and I was been drinking too, and I almost shot him. Yeah, there's Billy. There's Castro,
The one and only.
Custodio.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's that mixed up on the spelling. Mr. Was both Mr. Bob and Cliff there as well, along with you and Mr. Billy still at CCN at that time?
no, not in '71.
Okay.
Uh, Billy Waugh was.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, Bob Meadows, Bob Howard and Dick Meadows were, I don't think they were in Vietnam at that time. I could be wrong.
Mm. Had Cliff already gone to Cliff Newman? Had he already gone to Fank, or was he still at
Yeah,
CCN?
yeah. He was
He
already
was.
gone.
He was. Okay. Yeah. I hated after all that he did, he got over to Fank and was training, and dadgummit if he didn't step on that dang landmine or that
Yeah,
toe popper. That was terrible. Uh, um,
yeah.
th-
Yeah. His wife told me, says, I'm the only woman I know got a three-legged dog and a one-legged husband.
oh Lord, she is a funny lady.
Yeah,
I got
Karen
to
something.
I got to meet her at SOAR. She's that's an interesting story. The sister of a SOG man marrying a SOG man. That's
Yep.
and actually that I'll have a question about that particular story, dealing with that in just a moment. But we've heard a lot about through the years about how deadly it was for you guys doing battle damage assessments. Did you do any BDAs, and specifically did
Yeah,
you ever do B-52 BDAs?
yeah. I did one B-52 BDA and I hated it. It sucked bad, man. They put us in, uh, and they told us before we went, don't worry about it, everybody will be dead. Bullshit. They were not dead, and they were really pissed off. And the reason they weren't dead is because we had moles, and they were telling them before the B-52 strikes, and they go underground. And then after the strike, they come out and be really mad.
God,
I
I
went in on
actually go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
I went in on that BDA, and man, it was terrible because we're out in the helicopters, hovering around, flying around, watching the bombing. And as soon as it's over, as soon as the B-52s are out of the area, we go in, and it's smoke and dust and shit in the air. You can't hardly see nothing. You can't breathe. I mean, it was bad. And then immediately got into a firefight, and that was over. We didn't do no assessment at all. we assessed our asses out of there.
Jeez, did any of the BDAs that teams went on if you ever heard of any, it sounded like the majority of them ended up that way, that y'all never went into a dry hole BDA, so to speak.
No, I don't know of any of those. Everyone that I know of, and all the 1-0s that I talked to, hated them. And I don't know a single person got to stick around for any period of time on a BDA.
Oh, gosh. Questions getting to, but considering this always comes up and people are always wanting to know, and it's a big issue of debate. 1971, you leaving in 72, but you're there in 71. What are the magazines for the CAR 15? Are y'all in a steady supply of 30-round magazines at this time?
Yeah, we had plenty of 30-round magazines at that time. I think they started coming in 1970 or so. We started getting the 30 rounders, because I know prior to that, everybody had 20 rounders. And when we first got the 30 rounders, they weren't that good. We had a lot of malfunctions and stuff. So a lot of guys would only load maybe 25 rounds in it. And then they started getting better. And then I'd go ahead and load 29, 30 rounds in it. We had a real good supply of them. We didn't have a shortage by 71.
And by 71, quality is good to go. Y'all don't, I mean, of course, you're always going to not.
You're always going to have some with problems. Magazines are magazines. They're not perfect. But mostly they were good. I didn't have too many problems.
Excellent. It's crazy when talking to some of the guys when they first come out, that they were almost as cared upon and in such need that they were treated like the RPD belts. People wouldn't dare drop them. They're tucking them in their vest and everything. And they're at the end of the war. Y'all got them in steady supply.
Oh yeah, we throw them away then.
That's crazy. Glad to know that, because that's always a debate that comes up. Let me get a few questions, because I think the next one that I'm going to ask you is going to be a little bit of one that you can elaborate on. David was curious, did you ever do any funny team missions dressing up as NVA?
I didn't. I know a lot of guys did, but I never dressed up as an NVA. And the only guys I know that did that had Vietnamese teams. My teams were all mountain yards. So, I didn't think it'd do us any good to dress up like NVA. Now, we carried AKs a lot of times. I like to have the point man with an AK, because when you start shooting, if they hear an AK, maybe you'll get another second or two before they decide what they want to do. But I never dressed in NVA uniforms.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Even if you don't have an all NVA attired team, that having that 8K for that initial draw, they're not going to think any Americans are shooting or in the area. That's ingenious.
Well, you can tell the difference between an AK and a CAR 15 real easy.
Oh yeah. Even me hearing videos of guys on the range at Recondo school, I can even tell the difference. So I know y'all knew without even in your sleep the difference between them.
Oh yeah.
There was a good question. Let me find. Gosh, Jason, you had one about skills that was great, about being a fast learner. I apologize, guys. Oh, here we go. Jason says, it seems like it was a common theme for recon men to be fast learners. Would you describe yourself as that? And who would you say helped you speed the learning process up the most?
Oh, well, I guess I'm a fast learner because I'm still alive. But I'm kind of I'm not the smartest guy you ever met. there was a lot of guys that helped me. You got to understand, uh, we had a deal. Whenever a team would come back off of a mission, they would go to the club and sit down, and whatever 1-0s were available would sit down with them, and we discussed their mission, how it went, what happened, what could have been better, what went bad. So we learned a lot from that stuff. So basically, I learned a little bit from just about everybody. Uh, uh, it was, of course, there were certain guys, I can name. Eldon Bardswell, talking to him helped me, and Ray Frolord was was good. So those guys helped me out a lot.
Was and coming from Mr. Nick Brockhausen's books, was Jim Butler and Superman Stanton around? Was he around you very much? I think you ran Recon with Mr. Stanton, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I own RT Cobra with Bob. He is an outstanding guy. I'm telling you, he's a really good guy, real sharp, smart, real smart. So, um, yeah, you can learn by just watching guys like that.
Mm.
You don't have to talk to them; just watch them, and you'll learn.
Wow, that's amazing. We've heard that about quite a few guys, and his name seems to always pop up about that. And he's got some. There's a fabled story or legend that he's got a lot of 8 mm film of not only Florida but some other teams on the range going through IA drills and everything. And I'm dying to one day get to see that. There's Superman on the radio in the field
Hey,
right there.
Bob. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he was a good man. I liked him a lot.
yeah. He, by all accounts, just outstanding. I think he became a federal officer when he got out, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
he did. The last job he had, or he told me the last time I saw him was he was a range instructor at Quantico.
That's
So
it. There we go.
uh,
That's what I
now
thought.
that's the last job I know he had.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a picture around somewhere. I saw it. I don't know what happened to it. There's a picture of me and Bob standing on the porch of a mountain yard hut down at Bammy Tuit. And the reason we're doing down there is me and Bob and one other guy went down to Bammy Tuit to hire a bunch of mountain yards to fill in teams at CCN. So that was a good picture. I wish I had it.
Oh, now you're gonna. Now that's my next task. Now is to start digging and attempting to find that bad boy because I've not seen it in any of the Jason books or any of the albums that I've gotten from guys. So I've
Get
got a new
hold of.
mission.
I don't remember the guy's name, but he was the official photographer for CCN. All these team photos and stuff you see, he took those. Uh, and I can't remember his name, but I bet you somebody will. He's got pictures of CCN you would not believe.
I think I know who you're talking about because there is a huge collections of team shots from 71, 72, and this gentleman had them all. And I'm thinking that that's the gentleman you're speaking of. So I've
Probably, and
got me
he'll
a new
have.
task.
I think. I think he's. I think he's the other guy I took to CCS with me because I remember he told me he says I was walking by, you grabbed me and said, "Go get your rifle. We need another gun," and I made
Oh,
him go down to CCS with me to hire these guys.
that's great. And guys, you may not realize, but there's the guys from 72, and look how small the Recon company is by 72. I mean, it's still
Oh
large,
yeah,
but I mean that's it's down to right there, perfect. Last of many.
yeah.
Um,
The, there was not many guys left. I left in February of '72. Is that me? I don't know.
there's Pulley. I swear, I was looking at mustaches and I thought one of these gents looked like you, but this is February of 72, so you might have stuck
I might have been
around.
gone by then. I might have been gone by the end of February. I don't know.
I'm gonna
But
go through these signatures and look, but we'll see. I know Frank Pulley's up there. He could still be around. I was, and of course, my mind just went blank. We're beginning to get into the end of the questions before we get into Det-A. I've had you quite a bit here, but could you
Okay.
tell us? I thought I remember when we first started talking, and the many legendary names of SOG coming up. You you knew Mr. John Caviani fairly well, didn't you?
Yeah, me and John were friends.
Okay, and there's a lot of lore on his mission and all of that. We've had Mr. Ralph Morgan on from actually R2 Rhode Island a little bit after you, that was up on the mountain and left as John was deciding to stay. I've forgotten exact the story, but he was up there at the very last of it. Were you going in? Weren't you at Quang Tree?
I was at Quang Tree. Uh, we we were on a we were getting ready to infill, and uh, they stopped our infill when uh, Hickory started getting overrun, and we started begging. Not just me, Daughtery was there. Man, I can't remember who else was there. Uh, we started begging them to put us in, but they wouldn't do it. And as I understand later, they couldn't get the Marines to fly us in. So, which I don't really blame the Marines either, because things were going to hell in a handbasket. So the only two Americans that were left were John Caviani and Jones. Uh, Jones was killed, and they captured Caviani.
It's and didn't they end up capturing quite a few of John's brew as well? Or did they?
Yeah, I think. Well, a lot of them got away. A lot of them went back down off the backside of the mountain and got away, but not all of them. Uh, they didn't even capture any of those brew. They just killed them.
Oh,
They
God.
didn't. They didn't need mountain yard prisoners.
Mm, mm, mm. And with you guys at Quang Tree, and I can imagine the radio before everything goes silent. Y'all are trying to get as much information as you can. How soon do y'all know, or do you know that y'all aren't going in and it looks like John's dead or maybe captured?
Well, we knew morning, by the morning, that John was gone and Jones was gone, uh, because you know we could not get any information, uh, and they were not going to put us in. They were dead set against putting us in. And I don't know if it was because at that time we had Marine aircraft there, so I don't know if it was because the Marines wouldn't wouldn't do it, or they just didn't think it was worth it, because it was two Americans. And there was, I think there was 3 or 4 teams at Quang Tree, all of us wanting to go in. So that would have been 6 to 8 Americans and a bunch of mountain yards. And whether we would have made any difference or not, I don't have an idea.
Y'all wanting to try, but from the sound of it, it would have been bad. I think Mr. William Case, Billy Case, I think he
Yeah,
mentioned that he may have been at Quang Tree wanting to get in, or was supposed to. He may have gone in the day after, as a matter of
yeah,
fact. I can't remember, but he said exactly what you said, that guys were just losing it, wanting to get in and try and help John and the brew or whoever was left
yeah.
alive. I can't imagine sitting there and getting the thumbs down on that. But
Yeah, that was hard for us, man, because we knew what was happening. We knew what was going to happen. And nobody wanted to leave those guys. But I, whoever made the decision to not put us in probably made the right decision.
yeah, unfortunately so. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I'm talking about the incident of Hickory Hill and John Caviani. Sorry about that. Um, and there are some terrible, well-known bright lights that go on in this period of time. One of them, I believe, you were actually on Louisiana with Madison Stroline. were you around for his bright light, or did you participate in his bright light?
No, I wasn't on Louisiana then. Uh, that was, I think I was already on COBRA then.
Was was that a big deal, Billy and JD Bath and Mr. Jesse and everybody doing the jump? Was that
Oh yeah.
a big note going on?
Well, you got to understand, nobody knew about it because nobody got told. That was compartmentalized. They didn't go around talking about it and shit because they didn't want the word to get out. Um, so we didn't know anything about it until afterwards. And when Jerry Stroline was a good guy, man. And knowing what happened to him, that's hard. Anyway, uh, we didn't know that. We didn't know anything about it until afterwards.
Jeez. Those Halo missions, some of them went well, and everybody coming back, but that is just the bravery it took for the guys. I mean, Recon's one thing, but jumping out in a Halo mission, that's just scary stuff right there.
Yeah.
Um, weren't you around as well for RT Alaska as well?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was.
Yeah.
RT Alaska, RT Kansas.
Oh gosh, geez, Mister RT Alaska, Dale Dinky, he was a CCS man as well before coming up
Yeah,
to.
before he come up to CCN. Yeah.
And that's we were speaking earlier. That's Mr. Cliff's wife's brother. Weirdly enough,
Right.
how SOG staying together. Small
Well,
world.
how that started was we had a SOAR one year, and I can't remember which one it was. It was a long time ago. Uh, uh, Dale Dinky's family wanted to know more about it. And his mother and his two sisters, Karen, one of them, came out to SOAR. And they met a lot of the guys that knew Dale and talked to them and stuff. And I guess old Cliff just put the smooth on her. that was it for Karen.
She is a very pretty
But
lady, and a sweet lady.
She's real nice. She's real nice.
Mr.
Cliff's
RJ
lucky.
and absolutely, she is a outstanding lady. I was lucky enough to get to meet her and finally get to meet him face to face after speaking to him for so many years. And she class act both of them. As we're kind of getting questions, this is interesting just to see. People would say that speaking of veterans, if you saw Superman, that you saw Johnny Elia. Would you say that's accurate? They were pretty inseparable.
That's Ilya. His name's pronounced Ilya. John Ilya. Yeah, they were pretty inseparable. They were real good friends. I really liked John. Me and him had something in common. We were both from the same hometown in Texas. So
wow.
And John got killed. I've heard several different stories of what happened, how it happened. Last I heard, he was working for the DEA and he got shot to death in a motel room. But I don't know that that's true. But I hate that he did because he was a super good guy. If you look at that photo where we're shaking hands with the Secretary or Undersecretary of the Army, you'll see John standing right there.
That is, gosh, I hope I didn't delete it. I think I did. I'll try and bring that up. But there's and then Mr. Guy was also standing in that group with y'all. That was quite the group of recon men standing around. Let's see, guys, where I've held you, so we're gonna start transitioning to Det-A. Let me make sure I've not bypassed any SOG questions here. We've got 2 SOG questions. Since Recon was in the situation that it was in and low amount of time on the days, on the ground, how much food and water was being packed for these operations?
Lots of water,
Lots of
as much
water.
water as you could handle. Food, I carried 1 meal a day plus 2 meals. So if I planned to be there 3 days, I carried 5 meals because you're so scared all the time you don't want to eat. And uh, the mountain yards, totally different deal. They got to eat, man. So they carry they carry at least 3 meals a day.
Wow. That's what was your favorite endage or your favorite ration that you take out?
The lerps, I love the lerps.
Seems like the
Chicken and
shrimp would,
rice.
yeah, yeah. The chicken and rice sounds like it would be pretty
Uh,
tasty.
yeah.
Uh, oh, this is great right here. I think we're getting towards the end here. Any spooky or specter help on a mission that you participated in?
Oh yeah, I think I mentioned that Overwatch we had, the River Overwatch. Uh, they were giving
Rivers.
us some trouble, and we called in a AC-130, and I found out later a funny incident. Found out later that the pilot flying the AC-130 was Bob Castillo's father. So uh,
I, I
he,
just found out about that. That is crazy.
yeah, that was amazing because he kept asking me on the radio, uh, "Who's down there?" And of course, I couldn't tell him. I wasn't
No.
going to tell him on the radio. But he asked me like several times. Now I know why he was asking me. He thought it might be his son. Anyway, boy, they lit the area up for us really good. I love them guys, man. I'll tell you, you cannot beat them. That they bring hell.
That is crazy. There, I think he was a lieutenant colonel at the time. That is just too
I
cool.
think so.
There,
Yeah.
Pop's dad up there is working the area over for you. Jeez, that is just too cool. Oh man.
And but when they work the area over, they work it over.
Oh, hearing that
If you've
story of
never,
Mister.
you never,
Go ahead.
if you've never seen one up close from the ground, up close, you cannot imagine. They are amazing. Boy, I tell you, it's it looks like a fire hose, going down around the ground there.
Hearing
I
Mister
don't see anything.
Les Chapman when they've got the strobe light going, and he said anything within 15 feet was dead. It was just a wall of steel around them.
Yeah, yeah, that was him and Butler, Jim Butler.
Yes, yes, yeah. Two crazy guys. Oh man. Okay, we are getting into the Det-A here. How did your SOG career wind down, and did you know while you were still in SOG in country that you were going to continue on in the military?
Oh yeah, I had no intention of getting out. Uh, when I got when I left Vietnam in '72, they stuck me with orders to go to drill sergeant school.
Oh.
And man, I was not going for that. So I called Mrs. Palmer and cried like a baby because I can whine when I want to. Anyway, I called Mrs. Palmer and cried, "Boy, please don't do this to me. Get me out of this." So she says, "Well, I only got one assignment." And I said, "What's that?" She says, "10th group." Well, I didn't know damn squat about the 10th group. Never even been around it. I said, "I'll take it because it's group." So they sent me to 10th group at Fort Devens. Now, I thought when I first got those orders, there's going to be 10th group at Bad Tolls in Germany. So I was ready for that. But it was 10th group at Fort Devens.
Oh.
And in those days, we didn't have battalions, we had companies. So they sent me to 10th group, and they sent a whole bunch of us back at the same time to 10th group. Well, 10th group did not like us much. We weren't 10th group material, to say the least. So they put all of us, or most of us at any rate, in C Company, the Ash and Trash Company. They were putting unbelievable guys in the Ash and Trash Company. Me, Eldon Bargewell, Rick Hendrick, all kinds of people. Uh, anyway, they put us in the C Company. Man, I didn't like that because all we were doing was shit details. I hated that. So after about 6 months, I started crying again. I got Mrs. Palmer. I said, please, please, please get me out of here. I got to get out of this 10th group. She says, well, I only got one assignment. And I said, I'll take it. She says, well, you better listen. I said, okay, I'm listening. She says, uh, 3rd Battalion of 7th in Panama, language school en route. I said, throw me in the briar patch. So I got to go to Spanish language school at Monterey, California. And you can ask any SF guy. Assignment to Monterey language school is nothing but one big party. So I went to language school and then went to 3rd of the 7th and stayed there for 39 months, 3 years, 3 months. So then I got, that's me in Panama. Uh, so I got, so when I left Panama, as a matter of fact, a funny story, when I got to Panama, I walked into A Company. I was assigned to A Company. I walked into the headquarters, and the company commander was Ed Lassane,
Oh my
the same guy I
gosh.
got the orders from the CCN.
Insane Ed
So,
Lassane.
yeah. Uh, I, I, I did 3 years, 3 months down in Panama. Loved it. Fantastic assignment. Great. Everything was great about it. And then I went to at the end of that, they gave me orders to go back to the 10th group at Fort Devens. I said, oh, shit. So I go to Fort Devens and I get there, sign in, 3rd Battalion. Uh, the commander's George Americhek, who I got along real well with. But my team sergeant was George Brierly. George Brierly had been in security company at CCN, and he hated anybody who was in Recon company. I don't
Mm.
know why, but he despised us. Anyway, he started making my life as hard as he possibly could. He was doing everything he could do to get me court-martialed. So I finally, I tried to get off the team. I tried this. I tried that. I called Mrs. Palmer again. Said, please, please, please get me out of here. I said, Brierly's trying to court-martial me. So she says, okay, but I only got one assignment. It's take it or leave it. I said, I'll take it. She said, well, you better know what it is first. And I said, well, what is it? She goes, Detachment A, language school en route. Throw me in the briar patch. So I went back to
Wow.
Monterey for German language school. Now you got to understand, I didn't know anything about Det-A. Had no idea what it was, but I knew it was in Berlin, so it couldn't be too bad. So anyway, I get to uh, Monterey, and that's where I met. I run into John Caviani again.
Oh.
Uh, John was going to language school, supposed to go to Det-A, but then they took him off the Det-A deal because they didn't want you know a Medal of Honor guy in that unit.
Mhm.
You know, too much publicity. Anyway, he anyway we went through the language school. Everybody had a lot of fun. Uh, I wound up meeting my second wife there, and
Oh.
so I go to Germany. I'm assigned to Team 4. Got a bunch of lunatics on Team 4. Uh, let me see if is there. Okay, we had quite a few SOC guys in Det-A. I don't think I had any of them on. Oh, yeah, I did. Joe Van Diver, well, the team sergeant, was a SOC guy. So he was from Central. Uh, who else? Can't think of
Was
anybody
Mr.
else.
was Mr. Rick or Jerry Fontana with you?
Oh, yeah, they were in Det-A same time. Uh, uh,
Carl Franquette, was he around at Team
Carl,
4? He was later
Carl,
than you, I think.
no, he was there when I was there, but he wasn't on Team 4.
Oh.
He's on another team. Anyway, Carl's another good guy. I tell you, it's 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 just strange that all the guys you meet that was in SOG, they tend to do two things. They're real good soldiers, and they tend to be a little insane. So I don't know what it is.
Nature of the business.
Yeah.
Did
Anyway, I'm on
yeah.
Team 4.
Go
I
ahead.
stayed
I'm
on
sorry.
Team 4 for I stayed on Team 4 for about 2.5 years. And then one day I was walking, I was getting to the point physically that I was not going to be able to do it anymore. And I didn't want to be that one of those guys that wore the beret but ran a desk, couldn't do the job. But I was getting physically to the point I knew that I wasn't going to last much longer. And one day I was walking down the hall and I looked at the company bulletin board, and there was a thing on there for volunteer for flight school. So I walked in and I told Danny Goldman, who was the administrative guy, I said, "Hey, Danny, I saw that thing out there, volunteer for flight school. I want to volunteer for flight school." He goes, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah." I was joking, man. I didn't think there was anything real about that. So a couple of months later, I'm sitting in the team room. Danny comes in, throws this big stack of paperwork in front of me and says, "Take care of all this shit. This is your application for flight school." I said, "Say what?" He said, "Yeah, this is your application for flight school." I said, "Man, I was kidding." He said, "Bullshit. I did all that paperwork and you're going now." So I filled all this crap out, and I'm still thinking, there's no way. At this time, I'm 33 years old, and there's no way they're 32, I think, 32 years old, and they're not going to accept me. Uh, so I go I go to go take the physical. I pass the physical, but now I got to go take a hearing test, and I can't hear. I'm deaf. And I know that I'm not going to pass the hearing test. When I get over there, knowing I'm going to fail, uh, I get in there and I tell this little girl that's giving a hearing test, she's a little redhead, and if you know anything about redheads, they're either good looking or they're not, and she was not. So, so she made me a deal, and I passed the hearing test. Uh, and then I went and seen I had to sacrifice to become a pilot. So I went and saw this major and did an interview with him, got accepted, got orders to go to flight school in January, I think, of 79, January 79. So I went to flight school. I graduated from flight school and they sent me to Fort Bragg to the 82nd Airborne Division, to 1st and 17th Cav. Well, that was okay. I didn't mind. But Special Forces had a flight detachment there, and that caught my eye. So I managed to weasel my way into the flight detachment, and I spent the next 3 years, I think, 4 years, 3 or 4 years on in the flight detachment at Fort Bragg, which was a great assignment. I loved it, and then I got a wild hair up my ass and decided to volunteer for the 160th. So I went up and went through the selection for the 160th at Fort Campbell, went through their selection, got through that. And they got what they call a green platoon, which where you do your training for the 160th. Well, I was in the green platoon, but unfortunately, I was right in the middle of a divorce from my second wife. And as it just so happened, my company commander and his wife were college classmates of the wife I was divorcing.
Oh.
So you want to guess who that son of a bitch was? So I was the bad guy. So
Yeah.
man, my company commander was not wanting me there, and I knew that, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to stay. So it come time for the Christmas party, and I showed up at the battalion Christmas party on a Harley with two dancers from Cat West. That didn't go over.
No, like a Led Zeppelin.
That did not go over. The next day, I was informed that I would be resigning. So I did. I resigned, and I don't blame the 160th. I was at that point in my life, I was an asshole, total asshole, and uh, so they sent me to the 101st, and I stayed there for about 6 months or so, and then I retired.
I mean, that is crazy. There you are in SOG, Det-A, and then you were right on the cusp, had this terrible luck or fate, whatever, keeping you out of the 160th. I mean, that is crazy.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Looking back on it, I'm kind of glad I didn't finish that because I was getting tired of them. Not the unit, but I was getting real tired of the people at that time. They were a bunch, at least when I was there, a bunch of whiners. Uh, and they thought they were special, and they weren't. They were pilots. That's all. But they thought they were real special, and they were hard to be around. You know, they were
Wow.
crying about having to stay in a Best Western when I had just come from the desert out in El Paso, sleeping on the ground. So I didn't I didn't have a lot of sympathy for them.
Little prima donna sound in it. It sounds like
Yeah,
from
they were.
here.
They were kind of prima donnas, and I was getting the idea that it probably wasn't going to work out for me.
Jeez Louise. Ah, I've got a buddy in here whose dad was Project Omega and Det-A. Roddy Patterson was his name. What? And he's asking, what years were you with Det-A in Berlin?
From 77 to 79.
Wow. Okay, Roddy. That sounds close to your dad's time frame. Maybe we'll find out if he was or not. Um, Geez, Louise. I mean, you showing up on the Harley with two gals. I can imagine. I would pay money to be able to go back in time and see the looks on the faces as you drove up on that.
It
uh,
wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't just two girls. It was two exotic dancers from Cat West Club. Anybody who's ever been to uh, Fort Campbell at that time will know what Cat West was.
Holy moly! Wow. Um, Let me see. We've got a few questions here, and we will let you go because we've had you 2 hours now. I didn't even mean to get you that long.
Okay.
Let's see. This is the last Vietnam one that we had. Christopher is wondering his question with the benefit of 2020 hindsight: was it a mistake not going after the propagation indoctrination system that was brainwashing the communists and fueling the insurgency in Vietnam? And I'm not sure if he means it.
Yeah, in my opinion, that was we had a lot of psyop stuff going on, and I don't know about all of it. I only know about a little of it.
Mhm.
Uh, I think they probably did try pretty hard, but they weren't very good at it. So it didn't work out. The communists had them all the time. They had them from the grade school up, and there was, no way you could beat that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from hearing new accounts and watching some of these new documentaries of grown adults that were semi children during the start of the Vietnam War, they saw things or were caught
Well,
very early and just absolutely brainwashed, and still are, quite frankly.
uh, a good example, an excellent example, if you get a book called The Killing Fields, it's about Cambodia and the Khmer Rouge, and it talks about the school of the hard. Uh, get that book, read about that, and you will understand the pressure that they could put on people.
That God, and the Killing Fields and Pol Pot, guys. If y'all have not read about that, I'll be adding that to my book list. But you can just Google and Wikipedia the Killing Fields and see just how evil the communists were and why you should be so against it creeping in our country and everything today. So, Det-A now. Daniel's curious, how did Det-A prepare for the unconventional warfare and sabotage operations in the event of a Soviet invasion?
Well, we were supposedly prepared for it. We had caches all over Berlin, uh, and nobody knew where all the caches were. Some of us knew where some of them were. Uh, and of course, we wore strictly civilian clothes. Everybody spoke German. But I'll be honest with you, the Soviets knew exactly who we were, and they knew each of our names. They had a complete file on every one of us. Had they had they decided to invade, one of the first things that would happen was Spetsnaz would have been into Berlin doing their level best to kill us, and our war would have started considerably before.
Holy cow. Yeah, and I mean, I meant to show this. There's rumors that there is another veteran from Det-A that's currently writing a book. But if you'd like to know the full on history, start on from 54 to Mr. Ron's time to the later incarnation of Det-A, Special Forces Berlin, Mr. James Stechkel wrote The Clandestine Cold War Operations of the U.S. Army's Elite from 56 to 1990. And I cannot recommend that enough. It is just absolutely amazing. And a lot of the stuff we won't have time to get into today, you'll get from that book, guys. Daniel, yeah, it's wonderful. What kind of training did Det-A operators go to blend in with the local populace?
Well, everybody went to language school.
Mm.
Went to German language school. Now, most of us, you could tell as soon as we opened our mouth, we weren't German. But we had several. We had quite a few guys who spoke native German, and you couldn't tell. Brockhausen's one of those, that lady asshole. Anyway, and of course, we wore strictly civilian clothes. Yeah, there's Adler. He was well, what we called at that time, these guys, we had a lot of guys who crossed the border out of Czech Republic, Poland, and they joined the Army. They went Special Forces. That's how Larry Thorne got in. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we supposedly spoke German. We wore German clothes, not American clothes, and we wore long hair, mustaches, stuff like that. We tried to look like a German as best we could, but I can tell you the truth. If you see an American walk and a German walk, you'll know they're not the same.
It's the little things, the way you hold a finger up, ordering beers. It's just the little things that you can't pick up unless you're raised that way.
It's a lot of little things. My cover that I managed, which was difficult, but I managed it. I was a deaf mute Turk.
Are you serious?
Because in those days I had dark hair. And with any kind of suntan, because I'm a Comanche Indian, I look like a Turk. And So if because I didn't want to talk, they'd sure get me then. I was a deaf mute and I carried a little card that said deaf mute and all that bullshit. But it's hard to do because everybody wants to sneak up behind you and clap their hands to see if you'll jump. Hey, that's Coy Reese. Me and Coy Reese.
You
He
definitely
lives
could
in
pass now that I
Onalaska,
think about it.
Texas.
Oh wow. Seems like there's a lot of y'all. Mr. Ken's over in Texas. And by the way, I forgot about that. Mr. Ken told me to tell you hello and he hopes you're doing well. Ken Holmes.
Oh, Kenny Holmes. He's a good boy.
He is. He was in that. As a matter of fact, I got a photo. Let me at least give him a little showing. And I don't know if you hated this monkey as much as he did, but he, about the time this photo was taken, he got shat on right after this photo was taken and immediately stood up and tried to kick the monkey as hard as he could, but it got away from him. Oh, Ken. Let's see. This
Are
one
you talking
always.
about that? You talking about Brockhausen monkey?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You
That
talk,
dirty.
you talking about Nick Brockhausen's monkey?
Yes, sir.
I hated that bastard.
It seems like
I'll
everybody
tell
I've
you a story
spoken
about
to
that
this.
damn monkey.
Please do.
That monkey, he had that monkey. We were all down at the safe house one night. Everybody was drinking, girls in there. We had a bunch of back rooms, where you could go with the girls. Well, Nick had taken that damn monkey and tied it up to a bed back there. And you go back there and it's dark as hell. And I went back there with one of the girls, took my clothes off, laid down on that bed, and I laid right on that monkey. And that bastard bit me on the back and took a hunk out of my back the size of a quarter and then got away from me. I'd have killed it if I could have found it.
Oh God, I can only imagine the scare and the pissed offness at the middle of the night having that thing bite. You didn't get? Did you have to get shots and stuff from for that nasty thing?
No, I didn't get no shots, but uh,
Whew.
I hated it. I think the camp dogs got that monkey and killed it.
I
Because they
was.
hated it. That monkey was always tormenting the dogs, and I'm pretty sure they got a hold of it. I think what happened. Somebody told me that monkey got drunk and fell off the top of a hooch, and a bunch of dogs jumped him and tore him to pieces. Now, I
Mm-hmm,
hope so. I hated that
mm-hmm.
monkey.
It seems like every monkey we've had that people talk about, except for maybe one, Jerry Shriver's, they all were taking out because they were such terrible little throwing shit on people, just all kinds of
Yeah,
nasty stuff. I mean,
they're
ugh,
they're horrible little animals. I hate them.
yeah, the
I've had
snakes
more
and
than one bad
monkeys.
experience with them.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God. This comes up with Det-A all the time. We've got three more here. What was the chances of you making it back to friendly lines if the Russian/East German conflict started, or were you to detonate devices or try to stay behind and actually fight the Russians?
Our job was to stay behind and conduct unconventional operations. But the truth is, we wouldn't have been able to do that because Spetsnaz would have been right down our throat prior to day one. Their job would have been to assassinate us. There was zero chance that we would have got back to West Germany.
God Almighty!
And the reason I know this, I got into a fight with two Russian Spetsnaz in a bar in Berlin called the National Station. We had a hell of a fight. And man, they beat the shit out of me. But I did some damage to them too. Uh, but uh, I met one of those guys many, many years later, and he recognized me. I did not recognize him. Believe it or not, he had immigrated to America and was working in the oil field offshore, and I was flying there. And I met him, and he told me that, yeah, our job was to take you guys out before anything happened.
Holy crap! What a small world. And I mean, two Spetsnaz guys. I mean, yeah, I would hope they got the upper hand on you. Jeez Louise. Oh, God
Oh yeah, they
Almighty.
beat me up pretty good.
Boy, that's the first we've
I
heard.
did.
You
I
got
did
some licks
manage to
in.
shove a. Oh yeah, I shoved a rib through one of them's lungs. Anyway, yeah,
God Almighty.
they're pretty tough guys. I got to tell you.
From all I've seen and heard, they are some pretty savage dudes. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
What role did Det-A play in contingency plans like Operation Gladio type resistance or stay behinds?
that was our primary job. But like I said, I can't imagine
Mm,
that would have ever worked. But we trained for it, and we had caches. We had what we call safe houses, uh, where we could hold up and all that stuff. But I'm not convinced that it would have worked.
mm.
Uh, the Russians knew us. They knew everybody. We weren't a secret, although we wanted to be. We weren't.
Yeah. Mm. Uh, what kind of disguise was everything, such as disguises, forged identities, and cover stories, coming from the CIA, or were you expected to do this on your own? Or
A combination, like mine, my deaf mute Turk. That was me. I did. I round that up. Uh, we did have disguises. As a matter of fact, Nick Brockhausen used to teach a class on disguises, and we had forged documents and identities and cover stories. But your cover stories really got to fit you tight. That's
mm,
why I went with the simplest thing I could go with, a deaf mute Turk. And now, because you're a Turk, these German popo are going to beat you up every once in a while. You just got to take the damn beating and let it go. Grunt and groan and let them beat on you and let it go. Uh, but some of the guys got into this real elaborate shit that I just can't believe would have stood up.
oh God, did you know a sergeant or a sergeant major Ed Trout while in Det-A?
Yeah, yeah, I know
You
Ed
did?
Trout. I also know him from Vietnam.
Oh wow, was he SOG?
No,
No,
he's fifth grade.
fifth group guy. Okay, excellent. That was yeah. So Sergeant Major Trout was team sergeant for the counterterrorism direct action team, 70s 80 time frame. Wow, very interesting. Um, okay, last question here is very interesting. How? No, that was not it. Sorry about that. Psychological operate or dealing with it. What was the life like for you, Det-A men, stationed in Berlin, socially, psychologically, and professionally?
Okay, I'll start off with professionally. We all were professionals. We wanted to be professional, and we worked hard at it. Most of us. Uh, for psychologically, you're not you're not wrapped too tight if you're in special forces to start with. And the guys that graduated toward places like SOG and Det-A, definitely not wrapped too tight. Uh, and socially, hey, it was great in Berlin. The German girls loved us. So, uh,
Freaking
and
on.
we got along well with the Germans, very well. And uh, we had everybody. I can't think of anybody that did not enjoy their tour at Det-A. Everybody loved it.
Mm. Everybody I've ever seen on an interview or spoke to personally that even outside of Det-A that were in Germany absolutely loved it. Sounds like it was the place to be in that time frame. um, all righty. I believe we are here at the end. Yes, Frank, there were scuba teams with Det-A. The book I showed just a second ago gets into a ton of it. Did and you mentioned when you end up retiring, I think in 1986, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
86.
and you continued using your flight instruction and being a pilot, and ended up flying for oil companies, I believe you said.
Yeah, the first job I had was a company called Petroleum Helicopters. I worked for them for about 5 years, and then got bored with it. I got really bored with flying offshore, so I quit and I went to work for another company called Evergreen. Evergreen is what used to be Air America, uh, and I remember when I went to Galveston to their office there to look for a job, because when you're a helicopter pilot, uh, 9 out of 10 jobs you get by word of mouth or face to face. They rarely do a resume. So I walked into the office, and I I was talking to one guy named Ronnie Smith, who was the director of operations, and while I was talking to him, the uh, the chief pilot walked in. His name was Bill. Oh crap, I can't remember his last name now. But Bill looked at me, looked at Ronnie, and said, "Hire him." Ronnie says, "How do you know he can fly?" He says, "I don't care, hire him." He says, "Why?" He said, "I used to fly this guy in Vietnam." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I was one of the Black Widows. I used to fly you guys out and drop you off in a jungle." I said, he says, "You were in CCN." I said, "Yeah." He says, "Hired him." So I got the job working for Evergreen. You can't,
Jeez.
odd things that happen in life are amazing.
It is, and especially you saw guys. It seems it's SF. It's just such a small world that years and years later, just in passing, someone who knew a man you knew. We've heard some remarkable stories, reunions in Afghanistan happening. I mean, gosh, what a small world. I mean,
It
that is
is.
so
It's
crazy.
pretty small.
Just too cool. And how long did you continue flying until you officially retired?
Oh, I flew for 30 years, I think,
Wow.
close to 30 years. Uh,
Jeez.
I retired about 10 years ago, I guess.
Wow.
So, uh, well, now you got to understand, after a while, I wasn't a line pilot. I was either a chief pilot or a director of operations, and toward the end there, last 4 years, my job was, if you wanted to set up a helicopter company, you hired me to help you do it, and I dealt with the feds for you to get you a 135 certificate and all that bullshit. And I got paid pretty well for that.
Wow. That's cool. I mean, you that's one thing you saw, guys. Even when y'all get out of the military, y'all aren't sitting around doing pencil pushing or some kind of boring job. Y'all stay doing something interesting always.
Most of us, yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, I've had you almost 2.5 hours, and I can't believe it's been that long. I apologize for that.
That's
But
okay.
it's been a heck of a day getting to hear you share these amazing stories and this amazing history. Is there anything you'd like to say before we shut down for the afternoon?
Oh, I tell you what, just if you want to talk some more, let me know and we'll get together again. And then I'll tell you
Absolutely.
the funny stories and I'll rat people out,
That
especially Nick Brockhausen.
we're gonna hold you to that one then. No, we're gonna hold you that. Uh,
Okay.
All righty, guys.
Uh,
Well, we're going to call it a day, and we hope y'all enjoyed it. And we'll try and set up a part two here sometime in the future, and have Mr. Ron back. So we hope y'all have a good day, and we'll be